And we have a question from your man here.
Hello. I'm wondering, I know that Eureka, like many other shows, is filmed in Canada. Is it just a coincidence that many of the actors on the show are also Canadian? Because I don't really see that on other shows. Or did it work out because the actors lived in the area at the time, or what?
We do end up casting a lot out of Canada. What's that?
No, I'm like, I can't. Good ear.
There's a line item in the budget that we can bring up basically one guest cast member for every episode from the States, because there's additional cost associated with that. But there are a lot of very fine actors up there, and we've been fortunate to be able to have some of them on our permanent cast. People like Colin Ferguson and Chris Gauthier and Neil Grayston, Erica Chera, all local hires. Matt Frewer is Canadian now too, so it's been a pretty great talent pool.
I'm on the run from the murder rap. I had to.
And in terms of both of you, I mean, Matt, your character has had, with Joe, the relationship has kind of developed over the course of the seasons, as well as with Colin and Sheriff Carter. Sally, your relationships have kind of progressed. They've not been rushed. They've been progressed nicely. What has that been like for you to kind of work and actually work as actors with, the progression and the development of that?
I'm sorry, I missed the last part of the question.
What was it like to work on a character progression like that, when with obviously the characters of Joe and Taggart, the way they've developed, and of course with Colin and yourself, with Jack and Alison, they've kind of developed over the course of the show. Really, it's not been rushed. It's been very methodical.
It's normally you wouldn't in a film you don't get a chance to experience so many things with. I mean, it's almost like real life. We go through children, we go through being not together, through other boyfriends, and together, not together. So that's what's interesting about a TV show.
I think it probably just boils down to it just becomes easier. Wasn't that great a comment? It just becomes easier to work with that person and develop those relationships, and rather like real life, you end up with a shorthand way of speaking and getting over what you need to get over with that person, whether it's an idea or your leg. And but it was and certainly on this show, it became very easy very quickly, because as Jamie quite rightly said, they cast it brilliantly. Everyone fit their roles like a glove. So all that stuff was done. That was out of the way, and it just became a matter of everybody becoming easy with each other, which fortunately happened pretty quickly.
And speaking of character, I mean, you've done some great cameos from people like, we've had Felicia Day now on the show, we've got Will Wheaton on the show, and one of my personal favourite little tidbits was when you put Stan Lee in the show. How did these kind of things come about, Jamie, and what's been your favourite cameos for all of you?
I think for me, I love Felicia Day. I love every time she comes back to the show. When we were hoping for our next season, I kept going, is Felicia are you gonna bring her back? So she's been my favorite through the years. And
it's funny. I love those guys, all of them, and those all actually came out of, I was going out to Phoenix Comic-Con, and they were kind enough to travel me out with Stan Lee, and Will Wheaton had told me that I should go, and we had cast Will for the one-off character for All the Rage, and hoped that he might be able to come back and recur if it made sense. But within 10 minutes of meeting Stan and talking with him, he said, "So when are you going to put me on the show?" And I said, "Now. We're going to take a flight to Vancouver instead of Phoenix, and I'm going to just write you something." So he just said, "You write it, I'll show up." And with Felicia, we had actually, we have a wall in our writer's room that has all the names of sort of guest cast, dream cast people that we would like to get, and Felicia was on that list for a while. And so we had this role that finally fit. And it was the same with Will Wheaton. We had Dr. Parrish made sense. It fit that guy. So when we got out to Phoenix, I happened to be doing a signing with Felicia, which, by the way, could not be a more humbling experience. You sit next to Felicia Day, and she's got 10,000 people waiting for an autograph, and I was just sort of there, doodling with my Sharpie. But I talked to her, and I said, you know, we have this role that we think would be perfect for you. And she said, okay. So that was it.
And we've been back in time, we've been in space, we've been pretty much anywhere your mind can conceive. What is going to be next?
You won't even believe what's coming next.
Oh.
It was, you know, there are those Eureka moments, if you'll forgive it, you know, in the writer's room. One of them was going back to 1947 and changing everything. That was kind of born from two different episode ideas that I'd wanted to do for years. I'd wanted to do one in season 1 that was originally called Origins, and it was going to be about Carter coming over. Allison's invited him to come over and spend some time with Kevin, and he thinks it's like a date, but it turns out that she actually wants him to babysit Kevin, and she's going out with Stark, and Kevin creates something in his room that shunts Carter and him back into 1947. And it was going to be a single episode idea, which is probably what everybody would have expected in a season 1 show. You know, you come back, you fix it, nothing's different. And I had another idea that I wanted to start the show where everybody was in a different role in town, and nobody seemed to notice that they were in a different role. And over the course of the episode, Carter would realize there's something very wrong here.
Yeah.
But I could never figure out how to get into that story. It was just like it was a notion. And so we started talking about it, and that became our season 1 opener, our season 4 opener, yeah.
And how did you guys kind of feel when you heard that they essentially, Jamie was reinventing midway through the series?
I thought it was the best.
The reset,
Why
going back to 1947 and changing things.
I thought it was the best idea ever. It, I think it completely just put this new energy into our show. And like he said, you could have just did it for 1 episode, and people would have expected that. But the fact that we stayed like that was so brave, and I think that it was done in a way that you weren't, you know, we didn't like piss off the fans, and it was some completely different show. And it gave all the characters different things to do. When I knew that Fargo was going to be the head of Global Dynamics, I'm like, that is, just the thought of that is hilarious. And it worked. And it gave us all new things to do, and the show could never, you know, couldn't have been better.
And how did you feel coming back then, Matt? And then all of a sudden, Taggart's almost a completely different character in a way.
Yeah, well, I mean, Taggart from the get-go was sort of always difficult because he's this weirdo that lives in the woods. So, you know, when he comes to visit the town, you know, you kind of want him to be part of the plot. So it was strange to come back after everybody had gone on this parallel timeline and come back in. And I debated long and hard whether to have some weird reaction to it, and then I just figured, well, you know, Taggart he's so sort of open-hearted and accepting of everything. It'd be like, oh, that's the way it is now. So,
and when he came back, there's a particular scene where him and Jack reconnect, and there's a pause, and then it's just like this massive hug, and it's all fun. And how did you manage to capture that moment? Because obviously when you come back on the set after not seeing the guys for a while, there's going to be that kind of, I'm great to see you moment. But then you bring it back onto the screen. How long, is it natural for you guys now because you've grown so close to do that?
Oh, God.
Just how did it feel to come back in and do that scene? Was it you guys or was it the actors, essentially? Was it your characters or you and Jack hugging each other?
Yeah. I mean, that's a legitimate question. It's a very easy one to do because at that point I don't think I'd seen any of the cast for, 3 or 4 months. So you quite naturally just go, hey, How's it going? There was no mystery to it. It was, I guess it just gets back to what Jamie was saying. I mean, when you're having fun on the set and things are genuinely happening on set, it translates to the audience, and that's the best of both worlds, you know.
And the truth is, whenever Matt is in an episode, everybody is excited because he's so much fun to work with, and so like that hug between Carter and Taggart, I think was really more Matt and what's the guy who plays our lead character's name? Colin. Just kidding. More than anything.
And the original characters, when you first started writing this series, Jamie, once you cast them, and you cast people such as Matt as Taggart, and Alison and Sally's characters, cast them, and how did they then change from what you originally written to once you cast them and seen them in the role?
Change for me?
Yeah, when you actually got the script, you would have written them in your mind in one way, then you saw them actors in the roles and then think,
right.
Did you then tweak them a little bit?
What's always interesting, I think, is you have an image in your head or a voice in your head or an actor in your head as a type maybe when you're first starting out. Once we actually had these people bringing life to the characters, it does absolutely affect how you write them. They bring their own personalities to it. We try to give each of them their own sort of specific voice and sense of humor, and you find yourself, thinking, how is this going to sound, coming out of Alison's mouth, or how would Taggart, throw a little inflection into this?
Let's try.
Excellent.
And it didn't seem to matter how much I hated I didn't hate, how much I sometimes had problems with the tech talk. I just get more and more and more of it. And then I'm a doctor, and then I have more doctor talk. And then I'm a doctor and a scientist. And then I think they were testing me all the time to see how much they could, test my brain.
We played a lot of practical jokes, especially during season 1 and season 2, and there was this one scene. It was a walk and talk scene that Sally had with Carter that she was preparing. I knew she was preparing all night for it because it was a lot of tech talk. So I decided that whenever we have changes that happen to the script the night before, the actors get their sides left for them in their trailers when they come in the morning, just in case there's any adjustments that need to be made to a scene. So I rewrote her entire thing from this little paragraph to a monologue. And over the course of the monologue, it started off with real words, and then they just became ridiculous words, just words that didn't make any sense but sounded possibly real. And I waited to see how long it would take until my phone rang, and she just called me, and she was like, "What the frick are you doing to me?" She was so mad at me. That's fine.
I have a question for the gentleman here.
Who will you miss most from the show?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
Who will you miss most from the show?
Who will I miss the most?
Me.
All of you.
Ah.
Oh, what?
You first.
What? Who will I miss the most?
Yeah.
Jamie. No. Jamie.
She knows I just sold another show last week, and so she's.
Yeah, that's you know what? That's an impossible there's so.
The craft